Hello,
Hello.
it's good to be back. Welcome to part two
Of part one.
of part one.
No, actually, it's part two of the topic. And the topic was broken window effect still.
Broken window effect. We're basically looking into resistance. Resistance about not refactoring, about not taking a legacy code base seriously. Um, the
Resi-
inspiration is coming from our Friday experiment where we were coding for a few hours on one of I wouldn't even call it project. It's now a proper app. So you have an app that you're sort of building for yourself or sort of as a passion project, and we encountered a lot of mismatch, let's say, between how you thought the project was set up, what your initial intention was with the project, the level of quality that you set for the project, more so knowing that you've treated it like a prototype, more like a proof of concept. And then it started evolving and we started using it as a project kata. And then we realized that, hey, no, this was actually a prototype. Like we need to either refactor it or throw it away. Like we need to treat it like a prototype. And we got this disconnect between, yeah, I want to move forward in the simplest way possible, but the simplest way is not available because we need to refactor to make the impediments um, more manageable or remove them or rethink our project structure.
And the reason why we've took that as a topic is that this is actually a common practice. So code bases are often started in a way where you think, oh, it's maybe not the best thing, but we have that already, which is the sunken cost fallacy in some way, right? And then you start to work from that. But instead of cleaning it up and preparing the foundation, of course, you can change that, right? Changing in that case is refactoring, so not creating new features and values, but changing the foundation that you can actually build up on and improving the qualities again, or improve towards quality, like maintainability again, and to be able to add features. And this was actually the part last time we saw. We actually weren't able to implement the shareable location, so a geolocation link, because the app was simply not able to react to that in the way it was built. So the way it was built is more like a how can I put it? It was more a Mapbox project. So there is a map inside this app, and this map wrapper, this was the test I wanted to test. I remember from the leaflet implementation, which is based on OpenStreetMaps, to Mapbox, which is a professional implementation. So something you need to put in your credit card in order to use it. And I wanted to test out how it works, how it is compatible with things, and the project looks straight as that. So it's more like I used the boilerplate back then, the boilerplate we used or have used in our projects, and I just the shortest way I could find to implement the map and test it. The point is, after half a year or 1 year, which passed, I remembered, oh, it actually was made like I made all my projects with my colleagues. In reality, it wasn't. It was basically a good boilerplate with a prototype implementation. And I hallucinated a little bit like AI and said, oh, great. No, actually, the code base wasn't like that. So the point was, before the session on Friday, I wasn't taking a look into it. So I was still or living in my imaginary world instead of taking just a look at the code base and saying, maybe we should use something different. And then instead of saying, oh, no, we can't do that, so we wanted to implement QR codes, NFC, shareable locations, but we haven't done it really.
Still treating it emotionally, still treating it like a prototype that all the decisions are cheap, right? So you come from this place of, oh, it's just a prototype, everything is super easy to do because it's not complicated. But then when you're touching everything that was super easy to do originally in the, let's say, first iteration or first permutation of the app, the emotion, the confidence that you brought to the project of, oh, this is easy, we can do this very quickly in like one stream, didn't translate to the reality because the existing code created friction that we didn't take into account.
Yeah. And there we came and said, okay, now we start to refactor. And instead of implementing features, we were in a refactoring loop. We installed Cypress, or actually it was.
We weren't in a refactoring loop. We were in a resisting refactoring loop. We were stuck in a loop of, I want to do this, but okay, we need to refactor this later, and then we go do something else, and okay, we need to refactor this later. Right now, I can just do this, and then we ended up testing manually, and then ended up wasting time when we tested manually and it didn't work. Then we actually had to do the exploration. That would have been really useful to do if we had been refactoring, but we were doing exploration in a way that we will now explore and get it fixed, but we will not use the knowledge gained from exploration to actually refactor. And then I said, this is a great example of what just organically happens on teams very often, especially ones that have legacy code, or where, like myself now, I don't actually know the code base. I'm just sort of relying, or let's say, I'm not saying I'm relying, but I am following your level of confidence and following your level of architectural insight into the app to be able to make judgment calls of, is this going to be possible? Is not going to be possible? Is there a simpler way? And that's really where refactoring is helpful. When you ask yourself, I don't think I can do this in 10 minutes. Is there a simpler way? If the answer is no, there's probably a simpler way that involves refactoring, but you're resistant to the idea of refactoring.
Exactly.
So that's what we're here to address. We're here to address the discomfort of refactoring that old code base.
Good.
We'll be using Code with Me, which is an IntelliJ native feature. So it's on your screen, it's on your machine primarily. I'll be joining in as a guest so I can control the keyboard where necessary. And you made some changes since last Friday.
Exactly.
When did we stream? Was it Friday?
Coming in a second to that. I made changes to it. Some graphical changes, but they are just were some personal things for me because as Dennis already said, it's basically a personal project in reality. So I declared for myself that it will become a personal project again. So probably I will build this app in the long run. But I made changes so we had no abstraction. So we talked about we need to abstract the map implementation in order to implement things where we can, let's say, change the map later on as well. So it is not like hardly intervened into the code. So that was one of those things. And we had some elements like the me marker, as I call it, which is actually the blue marker which tells my accurate geolocation. And this marker was basically dealing with side effects. So it was able to control the map like other elements were able to control the map in the same moment. And this has led to the actual problem case we faced, that we couldn't just change the position via URL parameters, like query parameters, because the me marker was stronger than the query. So it was a little bit like that. So
we had two distinct places of state control that had to know about each other but didn't, so they ended up just either flickering or one just dominating state, and it prevented us from actually adding a feature in a way that made it unclear why it's not working.
This is I think the problem, or was the problem. Or what I've done was to implement a new state. So actually implement a new organism component called map handler. So the map handler can include Mapbox, can include Leaflet. For now, it does only include Mapbox. This organism does have a state and does have a set of hooks. So far, I can't remember how many it were already, but those actually the state and the hooks control the map. So everything can use those things to control the map, but nothing should have its own implementation anymore. So it is the disconnect. So this was the attempt to disconnect the business logic, which shall happen, let's say, on the map handler area, from the actual components. And the components are more likely reacting now. So for example, the map marker, the me marker was receiving geolocation data by itself. Now it's basically handled in the map handler. It's a higher level component in this case.
We can probably put that on screen and show it to our
maybe.
audience, because let's give them some context. So we're in a TypeScript code base. It's Next.js. There's React on screen. I believe doesn't query and recoil.
Yeah.
And we're using, inspired by Nick Shoemaker's suggestion, we're using Cypress in a component mount setup to write tests for.
Exactly. So we have actually here a test which we saw before the show that the test component wasn't rendering anymore. So we need to take a look later on in it. But we can already, let's say, they work with that Cypress now as a form of unit test or component test framework, as well as end-to-end test, but we won't write end-to-end test here in the show. Okay. So just for everyone who asks me, I had this question beforehand already regarding Cypress component test. Yes, you can write unit test there as well without rendering a component. Just maybe an interesting fact for some people.
Yeah, you don't need to pull in your entire ecosystem for the application to run a test. You can just mount a component in an isolated context.
You don't even need to mount a component. You could just fire a function, for example, receive the result of a function and write an expectation for that.
Okay.
So the very core unit test functionality is inside there as well. I just saw that on another project we made. Okay, so this is a simple index page. So as Dennis said, we're using code with me.
If you could increase font size just slightly, and if you're here with us and you're inspired to code with us, or if your fingers are itching to get into your own IDE and maybe do something similar, let us know if you can. If the font size is okay, if you have any questions, and let us know if you have any React specific or Next.js specific questions that we might be able to go into. It is still audience driven. We are doing exploration primarily in the codebase. So for context, I don't know this codebase.
Me neither.
And I don't call myself a very good front-end engineer. I am curious. But I will, let's say, have a very much beginner's attitude and a very naive attitude towards what's on screen, with how we're structuring the React architecture, the component architecture, and state management especially, right? So I'm very much inexperienced with industry-level state management in React, which is why this is so interesting to me, because I get to learn something new just by being here with Adrian on this project. So give us a live sign in chat that you're here with us. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you think we're doing something wrong and you want to give us some suggestions. There were some suggestions last time regarding the memorization of the derived state, but it was unrelated to what we were working on because we had to get it to work first.
And feel free to suggest refactorings, right? So
Yes,
it is more like we don't have a specific goal today. We just use the time to get into the code base together. So I have my problems as well there. I can't remember to have written that, but Blame says I did. So let's take a look how we can improve and build a good foundation to build on that, and this doing that publicly. So we have a next project here based so React, basically Next 13 it is. So it's not the newest version and it's not the app router. It's still the page router. That could be something. We discussed that before the show, which we could try to refactor today. That could be an interesting thing. We both never used the app router so far, I think.
Would that change anything in particular?
Not really. Not for this app. Not really. No, it would just be a refactor. So it would be a refactor. So the next project would be on state of the art again, because page router isn't. It is a legacy state. I think it's legacy. So far as I know, it's legacy.
Okay.
And it could be a useful refactor thing. Maybe there is not much outcome, let's say, but refactoring is not about creating new things, right? So it could be. But I quickly go through what we have right now. So we have the one index page right now. There is not much of things. It is very simply made. We have a splash screen because it's an app. I just decided that I want to have one. This is personal preference. You don't need one, but somehow I like it.
And it's quite beautiful. Like, you made the app animated, which I really appreciate. You know, it's quite delightful to observe the app in the simulator even. And I have it installed on my phone as well.
It is not yet. So the new splash screen is.
We probably didn't publish it yet, but it's a PWA, so we are inspired to go a little bit more hands-on with PWAs since the whole Apple fiasco with DMA. So since PWAs are here to stay, and Adrian, I have to say, is an expert in business strategy when it comes to building apps which are natively PWAs. So I'm taking a lot of inspiration from, and Adrian has a very good graphical sense, let's say stylistic sense, when it comes to front-end creation. So I'm happy to draw inspiration from your work. You showed me some Git log earlier. Maybe we can start there to maybe see what all changed.
Guests cannot see this window. It's available for hosts only.
I can see the.
Interesting.
It requires
so it's only me working on that project. So what I've done, I think since last, I'm not sure. Cypress component test here. XFB is. I don't know exactly if it was the 10th or the 9th where I started to do that, but it is a little bit hard to follow this one now. But I would skip it because I think we should do it here. So it is a little bit easier to understand.
The final state only.
So we have a page, we have a scene, which is actually the wrapper, which includes several things later on as well, which are necessary. Here's a clients only thing. I tested something out. I'm not sure. Maybe this will be removed today. It's not necessary anymore. And I have the map handler here. The map handler wasn't there before. Before there was the mapbox map, as people can remember maybe from the last session, which was basically the wrapper.
Let's assume people weren't here on the Friday session because it was an irregular extra stream that week because we had a little bit of a double booking regarding one of our topics. So let's focus on what's in front of us. Let's assume our guests have zero prior knowledge, but let's not go into high-level detail. Let's just work with.
So this web component was the biggest refactor, and actually made it way better to work with it. It's not perfect, so maybe we can still work on that today. But the idea is that we don't have a specific map here anymore, but we have a map handler which basically handles it. So now we have a fixed mode of mapbox only. So this is just a parameter right now I've added. So the point is that it is be testable. So this map handler does receive properties from outside in order to do so. Because this is so this is basically, there is no state above that. So it does receive properties in this case. And we have settings here already. They are totally optional, so you can remove them or not. There are some things like follow geolocation. This is a flag I've just implemented. It is, I think, it is not perfect yet. It is some problems in the real implementation still on the device, so I deactivated it again. But it could be, let's say, triggered here as a default already, or for the testable purposes, which would mean that the pointer would follow the map. Then the position, and that was one of the biggest issues last time. The position was defined by many things last time, and there was only the map position and the geolocation, and the only thing that knew the geolocation to that time was the me marker. And this is not very good. So what we have now is we have a position which is actually the map center position. And this is basically defined by an initial function, which is a callback here. I just tested with it a little bit, and it goes through some stuff where we have, for example, things where we can, of course, work on, like this little thing here, and query. So last time, this query is a shareable moment. A shareable location, and the shareable location looks a little bit like this. So latitude, longitude coordinates in a comma separated format, and it will split it, and it actually will return the IMAP position, which is longitude, latitude, And let me take a look, zoom as well, which was necessary to implement as well to keep the state of the map. And then if this isn't given, so this is high priority, it would basically bail out of the function with a result. And if this doesn't happen, so we take a look at the window local storage right now. So maybe we can refactor this to a indexed IndexedDB version right now. But for the starting purpose, I was writing it in a synchronized storage. I know it's not ideal, but at the moment it doesn't make a big of a difference, so I leave it like it is. Then we have a last position string. This is something which is then stored in the application. This string can be then, or will be then, parsed again into IMAP position as well, which is this one. And the idea here is that the map saves it, does save its last location, and so the map starts not at 0, 0 in the world, which is somewhere in the ocean, but it starts where you have left it open. If you restart the app, you're at the same position. And that's it, actually. So we have that, and this will be passed to the map handler. Then we have the map handler itself, which is an organism component. We have here...
why do you call it an organism component?
Organism, this is a little bit from the past, where we have this atomic design of folder structures, where you have an atomic component, which is, for example, a button. It is a very single component. Then you have more...
Is this a common architecture philosophy?
I'm not sure, to be honest. It's just something I use, or my colleagues and me use for years, so probably this is the reason. I used it with several freelancers as well who understood that from outside and other companies. So maybe it's a German thing because it's mainly used here. I'm not sure, but it is basically the folder structure where you have organisms, molecules, atoms, and it's not like I use this folder structure, but I try to explain the scope of the map handler, like here. So we have that component here. So which means that this is a component which depends on several other things like subcomponents or hooks or something like, or state and something like that. So basically this is, I told it last time as well, this is the form of how we implement the idea of coupling and cohesion. So map handler does have high cohesion, but it's decoupled entirely, not entirely, but nearly entirely from the rest of the application. So, and this is what we call an organism, right? So a molecule would be something, one or two things, and atom is just one single component, like a button is. So an atomic component, that would be, I don't know, that. So maybe don't focus too much on that, because this was just to show you the size of the component. This is nothing of industry standard right now. So the map handler itself does take care of a watcher in this case. I need to take a look at this watcher. I think it's still the last one. So what this thing actually does is watching the position, I think. Yes, it does watch the position, right? So it does watch the position, and it was quite interesting to implement this into Cypress tests, because this needs to be basically intercepted in the beginning. And we need to take a look. We can take a look later on how that actually works. And of course, it is a little bit like you need to. This is here. You have the position watcher and what actually happens. And this watcher does. This is an interesting point. It does set the user position, nothing else. So the user position. This is a selector of the overarching state for the map handler. And the map handler does have a selector for the position of the user, and this state is basically will be created out of latitude, longitude, altitude. The accuracy as well, because it's a geolocation thing. It can be IP location, Wi-Fi location as well, but accuracy is a part of that. And the error message, because the watcher is sometimes giving you an error message as well. So this will be stored. So this could be mocked now as well. So you could basically create a stub, a mock, a fixture, something like that, and test it with a specific location without actually having any form of watcher online. So this is actually quite interesting to have.
One of the things that I find very... Let's take a pause here, because we went into a little bit too much detail on the width of it. what's one of the things that I find confusing, especially when I'm pairing with front-end engineers who are not back-end engineers, is generally this: they have an approach, let's say, to how they build and structure their React components or any kind of front-end component that is deriving usage scenarios from a framework or a component library like React, like Vue, like Angular. Generally, what happens is that they follow the structure that is recommended by the library, by the documentation, and it ends up being these, let's say, these very benign looking functions. But then I see them struggle to name things. Like, what's the, for example, you have a functional component for the map handler, right? So it's a second degree return value, and it has access to hooks, and it has access to factory functions of hooks. And then the specificity of what that terminology means gets really confusing. And I see, even when following you, I find it difficult to follow. Okay, is this now you doing something your way, or is this the recommended way of how Recoil suggests you do it? Is this the recommended way of how React? I know that it works. Like, I trust that you took an approach that works, but sometimes I find it difficult to follow the levels of indirection, right? So, for example, the use map geolocation, to me, is clear that it has a side effect because we're not assigning it to anything. We're not giving it anything, right? So even though it's a hook, we're not using it like a hook. Because usually you would assign the getter and the state and the mutation function to something within the component and then assign it to the component. But here we're actually relying on the GPS, the GPS module of the device, or in this case the simulator, or in the case of the tests, the fake, the mock, whatever we're using. But it seems odd to me that we are hiding this state somewhere in the hook, because if I go check out the hook, so use map geolocation, the state is actually in Recoil.
Yeah. And Recoil is on the level of map handler itself. In this case, the state.
Okay, so what does that mean? Because I think that might make a little bit more sense.
So map handler, as I said, is an overarching component. You start map handler with some settings, and inside there is an entire ecosystem. And the ecosystem consists on a very high level about a controllable element, which is the state. So let's take a look at the state. We have the map handler state. So this is the map handler state. This is basically a Recoil atom. And we have here now the interface of position. This is an IMAP position. This is the map position itself. So the overarching.
We have this one earlier. Yeah.
Exactly. So we have a user
and longitude and latitude.
Exactly. And we have the user position inside that as well. So it is basically the user's position. And the only thing which the hook does, you saw, which doesn't return anything, is to update via a watcher this position. Right?
Yes.
This is what, so you can, everything else which is connected to user position, geolocation data, just needs to subscribe to this property of this atom. So this is the idea about that. As well as follow geolocation, which is a Boolean, and settings applied. This is just for the initial state, something that we know that this to be getting basically in a productive mode and is yet initialized and sanitized already. And then we have the default state. This is easy to read. So we have the position which starts if nothing else happens, 0, 0, zoom 14, and user position is 0, 0, 0, now, follow geolocation is false, and it is not yet applied. And there we just have selectors. Those selectors does include getters and setters, and we can basically use them to change something.
I do find this somewhat difficult to read. Like
which one?
This bit here, the position selector. So this is the one that the hook that we just talked about actually manipulates, and it internally gets it, right? So we're not actually binding it internally. We're not adding it through a function parameter. We're not actually using the return value of the function. So the function itself imports this one. You can see it's exported, right? So we are bleeding a lot of abstractions here. So we are working in a very highly cohesive module where the module itself has intimate knowledge about a lot of let's say framework detail that's going on, which is actually what we might actually want to refactor to some degree.
If it doesn't hurt us.
If it doesn't hurt, yeah. So
we don't refactor for the sake of refactoring. This is important as well.
Yes. So in order to have a North Star, we want to add a feature that is not difficult to add, which is when we're on the position selector state, when we are on a fixed position that we got to through an URL, we want the, how would you call it, the initial state, the splash screen, to be opening up, creating a new moment, right? So we are going directly into the modal state when the application launches. Why is that? Like, where in the code base would that live, and why is that difficult to implement right now?
So the shareable location is already functioning. So I would quickly show it as an quickly thing. So imagine we have here the app. We start the app, and we just this is the very first initial state. On some point, then we have geolocation, and you see where I am at the moment. And if I would add now the location, this is where Raoul is actually gave us the exactly. So we would every time we open that one, we would jump to this position, and this actually in the center is the position we have here, -38 and -68, and which is, just for everyone to understand, in South America.
Yes.
Somewhere here. So if I would jump onto that one again, because we don't have a zoom level implemented here as well so far, we always go into the standard zoom. If I would remove that again, so for example, I will move a little bit to that one, and we have here this intersection, and I would remove that and open the map again, I would start at this intersection again.
And that's the state handler with the local storage that you showed me earlier, I'm assuming.
Exactly, the use effect, which is above the handler, which could be removed into a hook as well, of course, to just clean it up a little bit, because maybe it is not the right place, but this is something we could do today, for example. Oftentimes, I just work like that, and then I refactor, just to keep things simple, to get to the point where it's working, and then refactor.
The feature we want to add is, when you do navigate to the app, when you hit refresh and you have this open, so you would get here by clicking on a QR code, right? So the QR code would have this what's SL?
Shareable location.
Shareable location. So the query string for shareable location is being controlled by the QR code. So you would actually be physically at this location, scanning a QR code, and it would open up this application, this PWA, and you would land here, and then the model would have to appear as if we had clicked the button, or if that, or let's say that is the default state.
So wait a second. Where are my?
Where are your templates?
I'm not prepared again. So wait a second, I need to find them. Give me just one moment. I don't know exactly where I have moved them. I think there they are. Where they are again. So I was filtering them. I had so many nice images. Where they gone? My test images, I use them, though those have specific sizes. Back. Documents, maybe? No. Come on, this is unpleasant. I have some best offs here. Wait a second. Maybe this is a good one. So
yeah,
I use now my GoPro images instead, because I think I have removed this folder.
Oh no.
This was my mistake. Okay, then I move it now to desktop, and then we can use it. So actually, this is then the state which shall open. So it is basically receiving an image now. This is actually a large one, it's 10 megabyte image. And was now downsampled, as I showed in the last thing as well. And we have now a moment here. Okay, I was basically a little bit misplaced, but this would be then the moment. And then I could basically add images later. And at the moment...
But now it added the moment at your current location, not on the one where we were on the query string, right? So there is still some disagreement on where we are exactly on the map.
Exactly.
Because of how the model is wired up around away from the state of the
exactly. There is no connection between this call. So we start here with that position, and there is no action right now which opens a moment and prompts you for an image in one way or another.
So how would we how would we write a test for the functionality that already works? So not the query string version, but for the original setting, where you just navigate somewhere, click the button, and then express what you want to do with that.
You mean this, for example? Now I press the plus.
Yeah.
Say I want to add the moment.
Yeah.
Probably this is hochladen, exactly, which means upload. This is a good question, so we need to find out. So I basically have added here this moment, and there's definitely no test for this right now.
I know, but that's my point, right? In order for us to make this functionality more complex, I would at least want to test cover the simple version, so that we can confirm that there's no regression. And then if we have to refactor something, because I see that something's misbehaving, right? So we will have to go in under the hood and tweak a few things and rewire a few states, a few state hooks. It was actually Thomas who said, "Hey, hello, Thomas, our favorite LinkedIn user." It's good to see. I just saw the notification on my phone. Thank you for being with us. How are you doing, Thomas? Thomas actually sent me a few ideas regarding how to manage state in front-end applications and what that would look like. So Thomas, if you have some questions that pertains to that code example that you sent me a while ago, do chime in, please. If you have some insights, some questions, some comments. Happy to.
But regarding your question, so let's take a quick look what that actually is. But maybe I quickly finish what I've just said about the map handler, right?
Quickly.
So we have another, let's say, standalone functionality which actually applies the settings once. So this is just settings. Then we have here starting the map, which is the actual implementation of mapbox map.
Is the mapbox map component a pure component? Like, I'm assuming it would have some weird usability or experience issues if we were to clumsily dismount it or move it, right? So it has some internal state because it's rendering a map. It's not pure, or is it?
I don't know exactly what you mean with pure, but it is, I would say, 50% what we saw last time, and it already received updates to follow the map handler's instructions. But the idea is to basically give this component, as you can see here, instructions from outside. So there is not the idea that we implement this component with direct connection to the state. So it is a little bit like the state happens inside here. This one can then use the hooks to actually manipulate the state, but it shouldn't do it by itself and not internally. So it should always be like inside the map. Inside the map handler, you do business logic, and the mapbox map is more a form of receiving and subscribing component.
Because we are configuring this. So this component is a singleton, right? So not this one, but like this one that we export, because it renders this mapbox, but inside the mapbox, it's actually the mapbox map is getting the state that we define here by importing recoil and then using recoil to get to the state, right? So we're not doing it by passing the state in the prop, or at least by passing the factory in the prop, but we are using the module to get to it. So if we were to write a test for this, we'd actually have to bring recoil into the test context.
With recoil, you don't mean the recoil provider, you mean the recoil state.
The recoil state, yeah. I mean, at least the selector, because that's the derived state. That's our fact. That's our view.
I'm not sure if this is really necessary right now. Probably it is necessary for the moment stuff, but so I'm not sure. Let's take a look. Wait a second. If this is the case already, can't remember. What do we have as tests here? We have the map handler test,
Okay.
which actually this is a test already there. So we have the map handler here. It is set statically to mapbox, to the test mode. So we have several, let's say, debug functionality inside as well. And we have a geolocation setter to meme the geolocation watcher. And then we're going to test it actually already. Yeah, so this is actually what we need. This is just something is necessary to implement. If there would be more, like other providers as well, we need to probably build a combined component. But at the
Do
moment,
these tests pass? Can you show us how the test?
one is not. This was the one I don't understood why it actually was actually not passing. And this
Because
is this
I don't
one.
want us to avoid the thing we don't understand, right? Like I actually want us to go.
Is
deep
that
into
one? Wait a second.
and to make
This
it
is map handler CI. Okay, it's not passing at the moment. This is interesting. Exactly. There was somehow an ID missing, and I'm not sure if this is something of a problem now with timing or something like that. Because all tests were passing last time, so I need to go over
No,
it.
but that's my point. If we have tests that don't pass sometimes, we should remove them and start with a different approach. Right? Because this what we're describing right now. This idea that oh yeah, the tests are there, but right now they're not passing. This is very normal in engineering.
Yeah, but then I would fix the test. I would not remove it.
No, but the point is, okay, let's fix the test.
Yeah.
Let's follow the Boy Scout rule. Tests are failing. Let's fix the test. What's wrong with the test? Do you think?
So I'm still not really getting follow geo position. Okay, so sorry. What we have here is actually it shall ask for if this map box. This is just a checker that this is the right map
That's not
box.
the right test. It's the second test failing, right?
No, it is renders map box map is failing.
Oh, renders map. Are both of them
Exactly.
failing?
No, that's the second one is actually working.
Interesting. Okay.
But it's based on the same test, so maybe it is just. I give it a try now. Maybe it's sometimes it is a little bit like we haven't.
And that's exactly what I want to highlight. I don't want
Yeah.
us to have tests that sometimes pass, sometimes fail. Like,
Yeah, but I need to start to understand, and this I won't change this behavior because this is actually how I debug things. So first of all, I need to understand why I don't throw it away without learning what the problem is, right?
So let's learn why the test is flaky.
Yeah.
Why does it fail right now? So the timeout is this one on line 30, and I see you added a timeout manually because you seem to have issues with this.
No. I just wanted to have the test fail fast.
Fail fast. Okay, so you're assuming
This is it is 10 seconds by default or 5 seconds or something.
So the map, and we're selecting it with an ID. Is the ID present, or is that outside of our control? This is one of the rare selectors that has an ID.
Yes, because I couldn't add data test text to the original map box, so I needed to add an ID. This was actually.
Can we use a different selector?
You have code with me. You can do that. That was the original intention. You wanted to do that.
What does the HTML look like? If you just show me the simulator, what are we doing?
Wait a second. I show it here. This is a little bit easier.
Yeah, is the component we're looking for actually on screen? On the in Cypress?
In Cypress?
I mean, if you can show me in Cypress,
Yeah,
is it
it is.
actually on screen?
Yeah, this is this map here. Oh.
So why doesn't it find it?
Yeah, this is the question, right? So we have it Mapbox map. This is this
Okay.
one. It should be there, but it isn't.
And how does this work if, since there's two tests on the screen and they both have this ID, how does that... That doesn't
I
make
don't know.
sense.
We,
No?
no, it doesn't. And this is the reason why we need to find out. And I actually need to take a look if the second one was asking for that or not. No, it wasn't asking for that. So something happened with that one. So it basically
Well,
should
when
exist
you're
and it
running
should
the
be
test,
visible.
Adrian, when you're running the tests,
Yeah.
both tests have been at some point in the DOM, right? So if both tests add the map to the DOM and maybe one of them gets just hidden and not destroyed, then I would assume now this HTML page has two DOM elements with the same ID, no? And one of them is removed from
No.
the...
If you test this is the same with Jest. Every IT or integration test would restart the mounting process.
Okay. That was
So
just a
this is not the
hypothesis.
issue.
How come we're not checking that the map is rendered on follows geoposition?
A good question, actually, because we see it here. This was my first intent that it was what was there too late, but actually it wasn't. And the interesting, what we could do now, it's a little bit easier maybe to understand, is to quickly skip the second one.
Yeah, to see if there's a side effect on...
Exactly. Probably we don't see a map. So we don't see a map now. Probably this is just because that the map is in reality really not rendering. So we need to find out why the map is not rendering. So
Correct.
what I would do now, so my standard approach is to get into, but it's actually, you wanted to do that, right?
Yeah.
So the
yeah.
question
So
is,
I wanted-
last time I did that, maybe you did that now.
What's this test mode for the React component?
You get some additional, what is this? Up there, you get some additional informations to why you're basically building the test. And
Is it
when
something you added, or is that...
Yeah, this is something I like to add, which only happens in test mode. Exactly. I personally prefer those things. Yeah.
This reminds me of a certain test mode incident from Volkswagen a few years ago. But
When users see the test mode,
yes. When the engine is being tested under test.
this one. Yeah, German engineering, right?
German engineering.
We know how to.
Right, so is there a chance that, if I remove this test mode here, I don't actually have permission to edit files.
How can I give you edit? So this
I've just requested. Okay. Right. So if I can edit and I remove test mode, what happens with the test?
Nothing.
Nothing. And if I remove test mode on the bottom test, it will fail. If I don't skip it, then if I remove test mode, it should fail, right? I'm always.
No, it doesn't fail.
It doesn't fail. So is it okay if we keep the test mode away, so that we reduce the complexity?
We can, but then I would do it differently and say that we actually say test mode is false.
What is the default test mode?
False.
Then why should we specify it?
Because I want to implement it in after we are finished again and don't forget it.
No, but wait, why are we doing this? Like, why do you have test mode turned on if the test mode parameter doesn't...
Because I want to have understanding of the app, especially in the very beginning, when the app is fresh and when you connect new things and you want to understand them. And I want to have, especially when several things happen at the same time, several states, and you want to have an overview of which state instead of adding 5 million logs to get the same thing as you just get with an overview. This is the only thing, aggregation of data. So, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
So it's not a bad thing in just the idea of having it. What I would object to is having it strewn throughout the tests, the test code, right? So, what is most likely to make this test not render? If you just start from reverse psychology, like what would prevent this handler from appearing? if I put the map handler mode onto the and mount it, wouldn't the map appear? Like, is there an exception? Is there an error somewhere? Is Cypress preventing us from rendering the map?
So we
What?
haven't took a look into the console, right?
Yeah.
So we take a look. We have warnings turned on now as well, and map state, webpack. I don't see errors which just would tell me that there's
Yeah.
something
No.
wrong.
So there's no JavaScript errors that sort of crashed the map.
No, not really.
Okay. So what could I add to the test? And let's do only this one. If you could refresh.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Okay. So now the map is not here and the test is failing. This is a good
Exactly.
test, I think, because the test is failing because the map doesn't appear. What makes the map appear on the second test where it actually passes? What's the difference? Follow?
Yes, this is a difference actually. So let's implement this
Yeah.
setting. Shall you, oh, sorry, you do that.
Yeah,
You do
I
that.
have it. I have it in my. So it's after mode. I add settings. This, and now the map should appear. If you run the tests,
Oh, it appears.
it appears.
So we found the glitch. So we have a problem with that setting.
So I'm assuming there's a default setting. If we don't supply follow geolocation true, then whatever the default setting is that we follow when we're not that we use data from when you're not following the geolocation from the GPS, that behavior is not working. Right? So let's make I will rename the test here. I would say renders a mapbox map in no follow mode. What is the inverse of no follow?
Follow mode.
No, the inverse. The inverse of follow mode. Does it have a name?
No, not yet. But you
Not
can
yet.
coin it.
Okay. Is it static? Let's say. Is it static?
Yeah.
Static location?
Yeah. Free mode. Free mode.
In free mode. Okay.
Let's coin it free mode.
In free mode. And free mode means I don't have access to GPS. There isn't a static location. It just.
I have access to GPS, but the map center is not following my geolocation.
The map center is not following your geolocation.
You can move by dragging the map.
Yeah. So if you move around, if you were in a car, the map wouldn't follow you, but you can move the map with your thing. With your
Exactly.
mouse, with your finger. Okay. Good. And what does this do? This.
This is basically a form of stub or mock. I would call it a stub, which tells statically that we are at latitude 00 with geolocation sensors on the Cypress device.
And you're then testing against the actual location that you've set here.
Actually, exactly. Yeah.
So these three lines and this line, they are connected.
Exactly. And I think that.
And what happens if I put this line below the mount?
I think I had problems because you need to set that before you render a component because this is a Cypress-related concern.
Yes, because this is pulling it from the device, which in this case will be coming from.
This mocks the device exactly, and then
So this is passing a stub through the navigator, which we have globally access.
Let's take a look what it does. Then it was set location, which is the second one. This one here. It basically.
Did you add these, or is this?
This is ChatGPT code actually.
This is ChatGPT code. Okay.
Yeah, but it was. I saw several things, and I think ChatGPT was just copying that.
So our issues might be related to this, right?
No, this is not the issue. It is 00. The map location was correct.
No. What I'm saying is that we have state, we have intent, user intent, that we are accessing through the navigator, but right now we don't have need for the navigator, right? So even when we're in an isolated unit test state, we still have to pretend there's a navigator, where in this case it's completely unnecessary. I could pass in an object and say latitude, longitude, accuracy, or a factory function for that, or a recall state for that, or a provider for that, or a hook for that I define in the test. but instead I actually have to create a navigator on the window and control it in a very intimate way. There's a stop. Actually, there's a
I disagree here. So I could write a test for not having geolocation. The app shall work there as well, right?
Yeah.
Just without you have a point of yourself, and work in that mode. So you need that one in the mode where you have it, and in the other one you don't. And this is basically just another test.
But for that to be true right now, there should be an error. If you switch over to your test, there should be an error right now. Yeah, with this.
No, there is no error.
Right, so I want us to remove all lines of code from the test, if you agree, where we don't have code that doesn't help our test pass. Right, so I would remove
actually, you can do what you want as long it is like I would say if I disagree with something. So we were discussing that you take the lead today, right?
Yes, but the point is I actually want to know what you disagree with, because that will help me understand your context much more.
No, I agree. We should have a separated test, which then tests another location which is not 0, 0.
Not 0, 0, because that's the default state. And
exactly.
Right now it is the default state, and we don't need to actually mock it through Cypress.
Right, exactly. Because when I wrote the test, there was no 0, 0 base state to that time. So it is it is redundant right now. So
but then it should have failed, right? So it should have failed back then, but now it does have one. But we can then write a second one. So this is the mount point. We are getting the box. We're getting the box map. Are these not the same?
I can't remember. We need to take a look. Maybe take a look, or I just quickly do where this is. This is in the mark debug. So this is just in the debug mode. So this is a little bit of a problem now. So this and this are parts of the debug. So those are basically parts of the debugger, which is now turned off, or it is just hidden. I don't know.
Why does the test pass if I've turned debug mode off?
Probably because it is simply hidden, I think, instead of not rendered. So it is.
Let's look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm opening it up. This is the map debug panel. I don't see an if statement here for settings. Wait, so the settings would be where? So the props would say test mode?
I quickly do it like that. Wait a second, it is a little bit like that. This just should be the quickest way to do that.
To find the element.
Warning, paste code in DevTools. I don't understand. Huh? Yeah. But I want to actually do that. I can't. Why? Why can't?
Oh, maybe you didn't copy because I'm on your cursor. Maybe code with me interferes with your. Just yeah, hard copy it like this.
It doesn't work. Okay, maybe I need to type it quickly. So data test map mode. We just take a look for the selector itself. Data test map mode, and.
That's curious. Is that a security constraint on the?
I never had this before.
I never had this before.
But it is it's up there. It is existing. So to answer the question,
0, right? So it has 0, 0.
Exactly. So everything here is still working, but we're still failing here. The ID is not. Oh, it is given right now. Sorry, it is given, but since if we do this, like setting the geolocation to false, we have a strange bug, right? Oh. Okay. So we have found a
because the 0, 0 made it crash. No.
No.
See, this is why I want us to understand what's going on here.
Quickly, wait a second. I just copy it. Quickly. The change list changes, but it's not longer active. Yeah, remove.
This is great.
And no, it's reproducible. Something is different. We have this.
Something is different. Yeah. So
we have test mode. Okay. Again. So we have now the state back, and this state is green.
This state is green. And if I now add test mode back, hang on.
Do it.
Yeah. If I now add test mode, it had to be true, right? In order for it to fail.
Yeah,
Oh, actually, oh yeah, I lost. No, okay, yeah, we got. So now if we re-render it,
it still works.
it still works. Well, then it's not reproducible. What made it crash earlier? The follow?
Oh, sorry, sorry. No, I keep my hands away now.
It usually happens then. Okay, run it
Okay.
now. Because we need to understand if we're just doing if we're
And there
just
we
running
have there we have it again. There we are at the state where we were before, where we said, okay, it is about the follow mode, which
okay. And if I remove the Cypress 00, what about now?
it is not passing.
It is not passing.
So
Okay,
it
so
was not yeah.
it is the file. Okay, yeah, you have to undo it. I lost history. Something changed in your editor. I don't have history anymore.
Okay, what I need to do?
So I removed follow mode.
Settings. You want to have settings again?
Yeah. Sorry, I lost when the sometimes when prettier runs, I lose state. Right. So this kind of test flakiness is what we don't want in our test. Like so, if the test is flaky and we don't understand why it's flaky, I would much
Okay.
rather we remove the test. Because the next time a developer, imagine you're on a team, the next time a developer runs into this issue, they would end up having to debug, why does it sometimes fail? And why does it sometimes fail if I turn this off?
Okay, it's actually not the follow geolocation, it is the setting itself.
It's the setting itself.
Okay. No, it's
So we're
not.
overriding too much when we define a full object.
No,
So
it's not. It's not either. It's somehow it was it. No, it is something to do with it. I would say we should start to just investigate now, because otherwise it is too theoretical. So we have this setting now, and this setting is passing. And as soon as I remove the entire setting things, it is not passing anymore. Okay.
Good. So that's reproducible. We have some comments now. Let's look at the comments. Raul, suppose there is a legacy code base where they have no docs and also no tests. You guys think that adding tests, unit tests, acceptance tests, etc., could help us to learn how it works, then be able to create some sort of docs from the learning? Sounds like reverse engineering. Yeah, so that's exactly what we're doing now, right? So there will be whatever test you will write is very likely just going to fail and you don't not understand why, or you will sort of end up doing what we're doing now, where we have, let's say, setup within the test, where part of the test is infrastructure sugar and part of the test is actually intent. And you keep iterating and trying to remove unnecessary detail, or at least refactor it away, which we're about to do now. To then really distill, I understand this, to write a test so that the test says, I now understand this. I did some research and I put my level of understanding into the test. Right, so, for example, I did that by renaming the test. I gave the test a little bit more of a specific name, and now I'm trying to make it fail only in the scenario where it doesn't fail for the reason that's stated in the name of the text, right? So this test says it renders a map box map in free mode. This test should only fail if it's not rendered in free mode, right? So I would have to have an expectation down the bottom which says, give me the map, check the mode of the map. If it's not in free mode, fail the test. And this should be the only reason this test fails. If there's any other jitter going on, the test should throw an error or throw an exception, but not fail. Or at least there should be a precondition for the test that says, hey, don't run this test if we show evidence of the map not being able to render. Right? Like I want to be very specific on that so that you can then distill your atomic components of your level of understanding of, oh, this is what render means. This is what free mode means. This is what test mode means. This is what settings means. So what we're doing with Adrian right now, I think this is the best way of doing like knowledge handover or pairing with somebody so that you absorb their context. Because I actually don't want to, go into the code base and shit on and nitpick on everything stylistic that I don't agree with. That is the last thing I want to do. Because, ultimately Adrian can just go back in and undo all of my changes. So I actually want to constantly sort of a little bit nudge to see, okay, what would Adrian object to? Okay, so this was useful to Adrian, and I make a mental note. Okay, so this is useful. This is useful because sometimes that other thing is flaky, and then this helps to determine, to give me a clear signal, right? So there's a lot of debugging history that goes into these tests, and even semi-tests and end-to-end tests are notorious for exploratory testing, which is exactly what we're doing because I don't understand the code base, and doesn't have documentation. So in order for it to be really useful, I would say once you understand what's going on, write a test, a simple test that really captures something that you now understand about the system, which is what we're doing right now. It's a great question, by the way. And it's not reverse engineering per se. Reverse engineering would be if I was looking at the HTML of the component and trying to like recreate the component from the ground up without it having its source code. But I actually do have the source code. What I'm reverse engineering is the learning path that Adrian took, but I'm trying to speed up the process.
Actually, this test should be called like that.
Good. That's what I wanted to get to.
Because now it's realistic. We have actually the task called
render.
like
Yeah.
it doesn't render, and we have no settings, and this is a problem.
Good, exactly. And now it fails for the right reason and only for the right reason. Awesome, Sabrina.
And and we still all the expectations down there are still viable. So it should be a map box because we said it is. It should be 0 because we have the 0 state as default. So it should render to this state, and we should have a map, but the map is failing. Okay, so I would invite you now to go investigate.
Yes. We have one more comment. Is this Thomas?
Ah, yeah, it's Thomas.
Yeah, 15 minutes behind, but then it's the recall state is like a singleton in the backend, but a singleton with a lowercase letter, which is a variable used as one instance in the whole app. Yeah, so it's it acts like a dependency injection container, right? So it has app state, right? So it either has component state or mount state, and you can use it to share instances of objects, like specific instances of objects on a module level. Like you can import the particular state of recoil into every component and then basically treat it as global state. Like I would not recommend this approach, but we're not refactoring that right now because we are using a.
Actually, so why would you not recommend it? Because what I saw, especially, and so this is my.
Because it's harder to test, right? Because we had to go if you had access to the map's location through a factory function that you can inject, you wouldn't have to write the plugin for Cypress to set geolocation. It does the same thing, but abuses the navigator to do so in a very complex.
But this is not. We solved this very same question beforehand, that we only should use set location if we want to test geolocation sensor behavior. If we don't want to have it, we test without and still have a viable way to do it with a state.
Yes, but we are actually changing what the system is doing, right? Because
why? It's the default state.
No, it's not, because the component knows 3 ways of behavior, and when we don't tell it to use the GPS one, it has a fallback. But we don't actually have the GPS one in a testable state. Instead, in the unit test, we use the fallback, which is not the same thing. But here in particular,
no, you could say settings position as well. You could say that. You could do this, or something is lagging.
I think the prop is called something else.
Probably.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean. So you could basically define it in the settings as well. So I think this is covered actually, and you still have the viability to have a very decoupled system, because it is actually only coupled in a connections of 1 to the state and not through five components, which is actually a great architecture.
So it might be more complex, but at least it's not complicated, right? So
exactly.
So it has depth to it.
It is
but
always one cadescence. Every component just have one distance
Yeah.
of this is very, it is scaled
very-
horizontally but not vertically.
is
Which
is
is
very
yeah,
useful.
yeah.
Yes.
So let's try to
Of
fix
course.
that.
Yeah. And
Otherwise, we were
everybody-
talking for the next 2 hours about that.
No, but we're doing good. But like this is, I think, a great example because
Mm-hmm.
the number of times I had to do something like this in coaching sessions, this is usually how we start with a team that is just so fed up with their legacy system that they just don't know where to start. They just don't they keep avoiding writing tests. And Thomas says, and everybody that is using it by hook will be connected on this variable that is an observable, so it's connected in the observable ecosystem. Okay, thank you.
We
Thomas,
just
for that.
explained that, right?
So I don't. I'm not that familiar with recall. I did use NGRX store in Angular and then the Redux equivalent in React.
So it started with Redux in React. People used Redux. Then with
Yeah.
Zustand, I think. Then React
Zustand is very
Context.
simple. I was quite surprised with how simple Zustand is.
Zustand is very much the same as recoil is. I don't see. I can't remember differences. I think Zustand is still a little bit more simple, more simplified. But I prefer recoil because it's basically of the creators of React. So this is just.
I see.
It is a meta product, right?
Fair. Raul says this approach could be one of the possible ones. Not simple for sure. Yeah, it definitely not simple. Just to be noted, we should not change the code base just to work on the test side. No, you should change the code base. You should definitely change the code base. Little experience on the code base behavior. Yeah. So definitely change the code base. Again, if there's but you need to know which refactorings are structurally safe without tests, right? So you can move things, you can rename things, you can change the signature of functions if you're doing it in a safe way, but backward compatible, right? So you aren't do refactorings, but keep them backward compatible, which means while you're doing this, and this is the important part, when Adrian and I will now do maybe some kind of refactoring and move something around, if we remove something that wasn't test covered before, then it has to be backward compatible, which means that there will be at least two, have a branch point, and there will be some like weird test mode, or some kind of test variable like a feature flag or a control flag in the test setting in there, or an injection point, and it'll make the design temporarily worse. Right? So if you're changing production code, you need to understand that if you're doing it in a backward compatible way, you will temporarily make the design worse in order to help you understand what the heck the system is doing. And then ideally, you would then keep the change you made and adapt the old system to follow the new interface.
This is the red-green refactor principle.
It's red-green refactor, but you're actually red, right? So you don't actually have a test. So you're not starting with a test that fails. You actually make the code change first, because in absence of a test, you're red anyway. So there's no point proving a hypothesis because you don't understand enough to form one, right? So you're exploring first, but you're exploring in a backward compatible way. You flip the flag and then you make the test.
Yeah.
It's all very theoretical. Let's demonstrate. Thank you, Raul. Very good question. Let's see. We have about 20 people live. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool numbers. What do we want to do? Help me out here.
Settings. Settings is failing.
Failing.
No settings is failing. We need to set settings. Somewhere is a bug in map handler. Let's go ahead then. You have the stage.
Okay, can you follow my cursor? If you click on my name, so I am the purple.
Follow. I have follow mode, right?
Yeah.
So.
So you are now following my screen. Good. So settings are passed here. Yes.
Yes.
These are the settings. These are the props. And then settings are passed here. And settings is not used anywhere else. So whatever the bug is, it's inside here.
Exactly. So what you could do is test for settings applied. So that could be a good binary test right now to find out that this actually never happened.
Could you tell me how to do that? I think I got what you wanted, but yes, okay, that one. Oh, you wanted to log. I see.
False. It is not applied.
So this is settings applied as a boolean.
So binary testing, it is inside actually this hook, because this part is set inside here, and it is not yet working. So you were at the right spot. Just I know that right now because I just debugged it right now. This was my advanced knowledge about the code base.
Okay, and I'm glad we get to rely on it. Did I close the test? Where is the test?
The test is next to it, right?
The test is this one. So if I right now the test fails, right?
I can imagine what the problem is, so it's probably obvious. But on some point there is some guard, and the guard is basically breaking the system.
And there's an undefined check or a null check. And
exactly, it is probably line 12. I guess it's line 12.
I'm on line 12 right now. I'm just trying to brain parse it. So if settings is not falsy, so in this case, if it's not undefined and was applied current, was applied is what? Was applied.
This is a ref to not be applied a second time, as we discussed in the last session.
This is the value of the settings, and it's false by default.
It is just a boolean, and as soon as it's once applied, it will never be applied again. This is just a basic first initial application of an aggregation of data, which means that this is first of all not the problem, but what we see here is you have this settings applied like in line 27, like here.
And then also was applied true on the
exactly. But this will only exactly. But since settings isn't set, this entire thing is not working. So this is an obvious problem, right? So the entire user fact is basically bailed out. This is what happens at the moment. This is what we need to fix.
Settings, then it will crash. Wait, is it just this? Is it this check that is broken?
And removes the falsy check.
Yeah, this one, right?
No, in line 12. Because otherwise because you don't get there. No, sorry, not that one. The left, exactly this one. This needs to be removed because now you get into that loop even if you are not having settings. And settings are then applied in line 27, which wasn't the case right now.
And something like this is definitely a candidate for refactoring because
then
I find this very hard to follow. But I want to follow the test. Does the test pass now? So how did we make the test break?
It passes.
It passes now. Did the test pass before?
No.
Does the map render? Is there a map?
Yes. This is the map.
There is a map. I mean, is it ocean? Like, is it?
It is 0,0. It's ocean.
Yeah. It's in the ocean. Okay, so I'm just checking whether that's correct. Okay, and I will add a comment actually in the test.
And we have it in the test here as well. So we see that the state data, which is displayed here to be testable, it is basically we could intercept it, of course, as well. But in this case, I've done it like this.
I will add a comment that 0,0. Coordinates 0,0 land in the ocean. So I'll add a test to highlight that this is intended behavior. Okay. Should exist map mode map. So you're passing information here. That's interesting. There's visible, and we are in the right coordinates. Okay. And if I add settings now if I say this works,
and
if I now duplicate this, yeah.
Duplicated, right? With
so if I render in default mode, it renders what meaningful setting can I give it to test that it doesn't break?
Geofollow false and call it free mode.
In free mode. Okay. And I give it what setting?
Follow geolocation false. Which is actually a default, but now it is explicitly written down, even if the standard would change. Which is actually good, because I see that quite often that sometimes you assume, it's actually default right now, but it changes, suddenly things break. And here we can really say if it is like this, right?
Can you check the test?
It is green.
Good. And if I undo these changes, if I put this back, Does it fail? I put back the change we did. Yes, it fails. I think it already refreshed now.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I undid our code change, and this is confirmation that it does indeed fail. Good, good. So we found a bug, we fixed the bug. And now I understand the code base a little bit better. We can I'm removing the console log, I'm cleaning up, and Raul. So Raul, if you're still here, this is an example of what it means to actually go deep. Just to be clear, I didn't add a feature that would provide some significant business value. Right now, the business value is that the developers who are working on the system are increasing their level of confidence in the test suite so that they can make a change in a much easier way in the future when I am actually going and adding that new feature that we spoke about at the beginning of the episode. And this took us, what, 20 minutes now to actually find a bug without even understanding the holistic behavior of how the plugin works, how the framework works, but us just following the breadcrumbs of, okay, if my assumption is correct, the error is on line 12 as we identified, we fixed it, etc. And I have to say, I wouldn't have been able to easily find it and fix it if Adrian wasn't pairing with me. So this is a key component, right? So us pairing together on this, two developers sitting at the same computer. I mean, we're not at the same computer. We're using Code with Me, which is a Code with Me, worth every penny. We both spent 20 minutes on it. We found something important. We actually found a bug. We fixed it. It's test covered. So absolutely, absolutely amazing. I recommend this approach every time you have this issue in a code base, because I saw a code. Adrian, I think you liked the post as well on LinkedIn. There was a comment about the the amount of time you spend pairing during development and incident response combined is constant, right? So if you don't pair at the beginning, you'll have to pair when you're debugging something, and you'll have to go pair with the author of the code. But the point is, the later you do it, the more expensive it gets. Meaning, either more time, or instead of pair programming at the beginning, you will call a 1 hour meeting with somebody, a month later. Right? So pairing at the beginning is favorable, even if it seems like you're wasting your time, because now Adrian is preparing me to fix something that's wrong with this component at some point in the future, and I will have at least the same level of understanding as Adrian does. So when the bug does arise, I can fix it on my own, or at the very least rely on the test that we are now writing to be able to move much faster, or at least to be moving smoothly. So I can invest like 30 minutes, like we just did, and I can say, oh, I made progress. I fixed 20% of the issue, and A, B, and C are still left and unresolved. Should we deploy? Should we deploy just with this? And somebody might say no, but the next step should be the winner. So skip A and B and work on C, please. Right? So that is smooth. It might be slow, or whoever you're talking to might already be unhappy with the situation. So they just want stability. They just want somebody assuring them that yes, tomorrow this bug will be fixed. Right? So we're optimizing smoothness here by by throwing two brains at the screen and using this approach to actually write tests to document my brain parsing of Adrian's context stack. I would now commit this. I can't commit.
Wait a second. What I do before commitment is it always like this, because I want to have feedback of my linter. I don't want to push commit something which is not working.
Yeah, I also don't have like your WebStorm settings synced through Code with Me. It's reading my WebStorm settings. So if you might actually be getting linter errors that I'm not getting. So it's just something you have to be aware of. For our audience, the IDEs will not be identical. So it is worth running the code on the host's machine. Adrian is hosting, so I am the purple cursor on Adrian's machine, and it's worth just restarting it in this manner if it makes sense.
Okay, I don't need to have that so detailed. And
Generally, what I would do, Adrian, is when two people are coding, I would add the second author as well. But since you're using the IDE's AI-assisted Git commit, I wouldn't do that right now. Usually, what I would do is I would add a second author or stamp on the commit, so that this commit has two authors. So it says Adrian and Dennis if somebody does git blame. That's possible, by the way, and GitHub also natively supports it if you're on GitHub, which is really cool.
we did. First of all, we did.
Use map handler apply settings. We refactored use map handler apply. We actually fix use map handler apply setting, and we refactored the test to cover free mode. Yeah, explicitly. Yeah, explicitly. Awesome.
What? Really? Okay. Later.
Okay. The commit happened, but the push failed, right? Or
Yeah, commit was okay, but push
commit was
isn't.
okay.
I'm not sure if this has something to do with code with me, but well, could be a
Possible.
coincidence, right?
It might try to sign me as an author, but you don't have my key. I'm not sure. I don't want to speculate.
Okay, because you have changes there as well, and they are. Oh, damn it! Do we need those changes? Yeah, we need those changes.
Yeah, we need those changes.
Oh, okay. I'm not used to it.
Yeah.
Oh.
This requires getting used to. Yeah.
Oh, actually, this would be the no. Stop it. We used the history for that because it's actually the same changes by this
Second
one.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't aware of that. I was thinking what this does.
It needs getting used to. Yeah, it needs
Okay.
getting used to because it's very specific to code with me.
Can I now
Because
push? No, it's still.
it helps you. Yeah, it helps you put both the author's signature onto the code. So in more regulated environments, sometimes you need to document how many people were involved with writing the code or how many people saw it and have a stamp, a sign off. Commit messages in Git have footers. You can put imagine like an HTTP request where you can have custom headers. The commit message can have custom headers, and things like verification, CI/CD pipeline, linters running, pre-commit hooks having been run, and a second author through pair programming. Those are things you can add to a commit message to signify to somebody who's reading the history that these are actually two people working at the same time at one computer, which is really useful if you're doing code reviews and you're saying, oh, every commit has to be reviewed by at least one person before it gets released. If I have two stamps on the commit itself, then that commit can expedite code review, because Adrian and I has basically reviewed this code that we wrote, right? So you give your automation enough information to say, two sets of eyes, two sets of eyes have already seen this code, so I don't need to block PR explicitly. This is more advanced CI/CD pipeline stuff. We have a question. Do you want to talk a little bit about the architecture, about the application, especially the front-end architecture, beginning with the split form, the backend to the front-end up to the GUI? Yeah, Adrian, do we have a backend?
No, we don't have a backend. We have a server side of Next.js, but I dislike to call that backend because this backend does nothing instead of building things, and so it's not a backend for me. There is no backend yet.
There's a Node.js server that might help with pre-rendering or hydration, but it's not an API per se.
Exactly, we don't use it. So probably there will be something in the future. We had features in planning where we say we want to connect, for example, some cloud storages and OneDrive, iCloud, blah, 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 to synchronize the images you have taken with the thing just for personal use. So this is still not the season 2 stuff where we want to implement a backend on some point, where you have really, let's say, an OAuth authentication stuff, and you can synchronize with the server. You can make public moments. You can share moments with communities. This is not yet planned inside this version, and the only thing, this is a personal app right now with some minor sharing capabilities, like share a location and create a moment there, nothing more. And if you create a moment and take images connected to a story, you can make backups basically with or sync it with your iCloud, for example, with your how is it called? The Google stuff, Google Drive, right? With Google. This is what you shall be able to do. But as far as I understand, you don't need server-sided stuff for this. This is basically purely client-sided made then. I'm pretty sure it is. And exactly. So just for the answering, there is no backend really involved right now, except the Next.js as building a building server for hydration purposes.
Okay.
So even in runtime, you don't need to have server-side. There are no server-side components right now because we try to pack everything, and this app is made to be packaged into Play stores and app stores as well. So there are no hard-coded server-side components which you would depend on. They are always generated to be cacheable by the service worker without being called for the first time. So you can combine that, but I preferred to have it like exported. So this is an exported app, right? There is only during the build time we have a server right now. Okay, that was
exported
a long
app,
explanation.
meaning that it is being built and bundled, so it has an entry point that can be published to the.
Yeah. Wait a second. This is what I can show you. It is basically the next. So we have the Next configuration with a PWA plugin of Next. This config just gives you some things where we can define the runtime caching, and here's some a little bit caching stuff with SVR strategy. And then you have service worker minify. Then you have some options as well. This is a little bit outdated, but I need to go over it. And there you have, for example, settings, how you do image optimizations without having Next.js as a server. So it's basically every image you implement statically will be optimized like Next.js would do just during build time. So it is basically as a static asset already provided. And the same is down here. Down here you have the export map. So you see which pages are actually exported, which is the index page with an SPA.
As standalone pages, right? So they have an entry point.
Those are entry points for the SPA actually. So it is not really standalone pages, but it is still, let's say, covered by the Next router, which means that if you would jump between with a router or link elements, then you would still stay on the same page and it would just re-render, but those are actually entry points to the components. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is it. So this is basically a extended version of Next.js with the PWA settings, which is not officially PWA. So Next doesn't have an official package, but it's close to official with a lot of contributors working on that one.
Sure.
So this is
Great
about
question,
that.
Thomas. And I believe that was Thomas, right?
It is. It was. Okay, we would have some 20 more minutes, so maybe we should do something different or another task.
Actually, what I want to do is refactor the test. Because
do
the
it.
code looks okay. The code, the settings, the apply settings, if you can follow my cursor, please.
Done.
Yeah. So the settings themselves, there's a much simpler way of doing this. I don't want to nitpick on that because this works, right? Because we are checking, you're checking two objects which are structurally equivalent, except the right side has optional values, and you can do this kind of object structuring to just skip over all of the if statements by just having a object destructuring assignment with a default value. And I don't wanna go over that. It's nitpicking. It's not practical for us. However, what would be practical is actually going into the test. The test map handler CI TSX, and I would actually like to refactor the tests.
But why not refactoring the use effect? Maybe you just said something, and maybe it's interesting how you would apply. Because if another person would say the same as you say, you would have two different difference, right? So maybe you take you go for this approach and just refactor both things just in 10 minutes each, and then we are good to go.
Okay. Well, here what I would do is, if I'm checking hang on, I need to see your camera. If I'm here and I will be checking, if settings follow geolocation on the what is this? This is the old object, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the original object. Then the new settings apply here, and you're checking whether when you're doing the pref state, right? So you're doing three things. You have the previous state, the new state, and the defaults if this is the first time that we're calling it, right? Right? Is that how? Did I understand correctly how it works?
It would only run once, yes, but it is actually you have the pref state because this is the very default state of the state itself,
Yes.
the default settings, and then it will be combined, merged with the settings which are coming from the settings part.
If it wasn't already applied. So
if it wasn't already applied.
Yeah. So this function in the hook only runs once.
Well, exactly.
Because we are overriding the new settings with the default settings that we're starting off with. Now, I'm not sure what the use case for this is. I'm assuming it has something to do with this. If we call this setting a second time, we don't want to override default settings.
If it re-renders, in some version.
There's two mutation points coming in, and one of the paths of the mutation point we only want to do once, and then we want the map to take over.
Yeah, and what the linter disables having empty dependencies. That would be a way to run a use effect once. But since this is disabled because of the Airbnb settings, we just stopped it, and we need to use the ref version.
This is often a mistake. I'm not a React dev, and even I know this. People often forget that they have to specify what dependencies make the effect run again to not be cached, and that's why that linter rule exists. But I would maybe here, I would just say, if new settings is the previous settings, what I see us doing here is perhaps.
You must understand that settings is not the same interface type than the actual state things.
I figured that was the issue. Yeah. So what I would do is this.
And it can be different, more different in the future. So you destruct this one.
I'm destructuring this one, and I'm saying, do these have a default value? They don't, right? They do have a default value coming from the outside.
Exactly, they could be undefined.
Yeah, so I think they don't override in that direction. So I do believe this is a safe change. I do believe these statements are equivalent.
No, it would actually change behavior. The follow geolocation is false, and in this case, it could be undefined.
It be false and undefined, or
just take a look into map handler settings. Into wait a second. I just show it in my screen.
Oh, I see your screen. Yeah.
So I can do it like this.
This is just nitpicking. I would want to simplify down the behavior if possible.
Here, this is like this. So we have a Boolean at the moment without the possibility to undefine it. So I prefer defined states. I don't like undefined very much. I like to have Boolean or null union types. This is my preference. This seems to work very good in the last years.
The prop wasn't defined that way, right? The prop was.
Which prop?
Possible. The prop, because we have a problem with the prop. I can
the setting exactly. This one can be undefined because the entire settings can be undefined.
Can be undefined because I can partially override. So these are not the same type because they can be partially omitted.
Exactly. This was the reason why I actually handled it in a very simple way, which was that one.
Okay.
Right. So it's not. So we probably don't need to have this type anymore, but because we have changed this with a question mark.
I can do prep that follow you. I think this. We can do this if you want. To give it a default value.
Can we?
Oh, but it doesn't exist. But now I have the type problem, right? So that's the issue. No, again, I wouldn't refactor this. Again, I was nitpicking. Now that you told me that the types are not the same, I would say this is not worth it.
No, you had a hypothesis, and we were basically debunking
Yeah.
it. So it is good to question things, and maybe this is a little bit important to talk about as well. So we often talk about culture and blameless culture, and this is something like that. It is part of that as well, that everyone can say opinions and make suggestions and hypotheses, and it should be okay to do so, and no one should first of all feel being attacked, and there should not be resistance like, oh no, you shouldn't do this. Was the reason why I asked you to show me what you would change, what so I want to learn how you would have improved it,
I mean,
right?
if anything, to keep it safe, now that I know, now that I saw what I saw, seeing how this functions, I would now perhaps just do this, where I say new settings follow geolocation equals settings geolocation, or brief follow geolocation. I would
Yeah.
much rather do it from this direction. But then I'm getting a linter settings is possibly undefined, so then I'm doing this, and now this is the undefined check, right?
Well, this is just another way of writing it down. It's a little
Yeah.
bit more
And
straightforward.
again, and that's why I meant that's what I meant when I said this is just nitpicky primarily, just because I saw how far right the code is shifting. So if I apply it to this one as well, I would say, well, new settings follow geolocation equals, it tells me that it prefers the
No,
no,
position. It's position.
Sorry, yeah. So it tells me that it prefers the position from the settings if it's defined, and if it's not, then it just uses whatever the settings were. Position.
Position.
Yeah. I would prefer this approach.
It's harder to read for me, to be honest, because
Again, which is why I said this is nitpicking. I'm okay not to keep this, because ideally we can ditch this assignment, right? Because we can make it explicit that it has an override on the first application from the overall settings, not from the map settings previously.
But would be interesting. What I just saw is there was no linter error, because I think that changed. This is a linter error, or actually a warning, but this isn't. So it would be possible that this.
I'm getting linter error. So maybe we have different setups on the. Is the linter checking TS files inside the test folder?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have linter errors here as well. So, for example, that one.
Yeah, that one. I see that one as well.
So, but just that is actually the same effect. Or the use effect will only run once, and that could be removed.
This I would prefer actually. So we remove this, and now we make it a lot simpler. This I would prefer. Do the test still pass?
Yes.
Does the application still work in a non-test environment? Oh, hang on.
This is still a bug with my.
Keep in mind you have in the query parameter you have roles location.
Yeah, but I have still my LastPass, and I really hate LastPass. I still have that because of legacy applications. It is so intrusive in your HTML. You really need to.
It changes.
Exactly.
It somewhat invades.
But it is horrible. You can't even tell your DOM to not. So it doesn't even the LP ignore flag simply doesn't work.
Yeah. If you're a developer and you're running your debugger and simulator, then you're constantly running into issues because of LastPass. And it colors your fields yellow, and then I don't know, is this my Chrome extension? Is this my application?
Okay, so it works. So we have done this. Let's assume that is good. So we have changes here. Interestingly, there are my changes now. Okay, I don't
because
understand.
you were also writing, right? So you
Okay.
wrote the book. I don't think he
refactor use map applications to a simpler version. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, good. And then now we write the test in the last minutes, I would say. So I think that was a good example now. We can agree that it is simpler now in two ways. We have simplified the use effect. We have removed the need for the use ref. We have, which is actually a new thing. Somehow my brain wasn't knowing that beforehand. And we have simplified that one. somehow now working because it's pretty wide. So why it's not breaking? I don't know. But yes, this is easier to read actually. It is a little bit like what we do here is a different approach. So actually, we just don't do it with guards or bailouts. That we say if it's not like we don't do anything, but we definitely do something, but with a fallback state.
I would do that if I had a second line of code that requires the settings.position to know already that it's not undefined, that we're in the defined state. So if we actually need a type guard, but since we're assigning, since we're destructuring, we're merging together three objects and we just want to define the order, I find it much easier to read because I know what the order is, right? So I want the new settings follow geolocation to be this, and if it's undefined, so not falsy, undefined, falsy would be or, right? So falsy would be or would be falsy, but the coalescing, the what is this called? The null coalescing.
Yeah,
it has a weird name. What's the name?
Everyone is calling that the question marks.
Nullish coalescing operator. Yes.
Yeah. So I remember when they introduced it.
Yeah. So the nullish coalescing operator is a logical operator that it returns its right-hand side operand when its left-hand side operand is null or undefined.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it is null-ish. Right, so you can use this to simplify your code where you don't have to have like.
This is very often when you have like a thing and then you have this and then two
settings.
Quotes.
Yeah, for settings, for saying left and right.
It is oftentimes to please the type linter as well.
Yes, yeah, to use the guard.
Because it tells you, but if it's undefined, your type isn't working anymore, and you need to basically add an empty string or something as a fallback.
Exactly. And now the type is correct, right? So new settings that follow geolocation in this case is never undefined, right? So if I was using, new settings down here, new settings dot follow geolocation, I know that it is always a boolean. It is not boolean or undefined.
Okay, so we've done that. We have here a good respected immutability. Settings applied, it's more readable now, okay, settings applied is more prominent now, there is less code indentation, that's good. So let's go to the test. What would refactor here? So let me clean it quick up.
Like psi being global, I always, does this need to be in this file or can we extract it? It's been a while since I used Cypress.
In Cypress you have those command-like files where you can extract functionality to be reusable down there in other tests as a command, like we saw this set geolocation. We still have this open. This is this one. So you can basically create a command and put that into an abstraction or just move it away into some kind of function and then call it inside there. This is what you can do.
Yeah, I would create two commands here. I would create a command for map renders in mode, and I would create a command for map is at location.
For as a assert command.
Yeah.
Not as a mount command.
No, as an assert, as an expectation. Yeah.
Yeah, then do it. Then here you can basically up here, you can add it to the interface and then just type it down there. This is how you can do that.
Oh, I don't actually have. I can't extract, so I don't have permission to use my extraction tools through Code With Me.
What do you? Then just copy paste it.
Yeah, could we? Wait, the command is
like 99% of all other developers do.
Where are the commands? In what folder are they? Actually, I'll just follow.
Can you press double shift in commands?
Not sure. Yes, I can.
Okay.
No, but that's not the real one. Is it? Yes, it is the real
one. This is basically that could be removed. This is by default.
I'm not that familiar with Cypress. So the command is this actually correct?
Yeah, I start with defining the interface and then you basically go for the command. Because then you have auto completion. That's the point.
And I'm just checking, is this an assertion? Is it okay that we're putting this into the command file or should we do an assertion?
We put it now in the command file, and then as soon as the commands stack up, we refactor in subfiles.
Okay, okay, I like that approach. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't like to start
So-
to foresee
so
structures.
The
This doesn't
reason
make
the reason
sense.
I'm being extra careful is because I know Cypress is very opinionated in how it wants its code structured, and I just don't use it anywhere near enough to say.
Personally, it sounds a little bit negative. Opinionated is a negative, tainted term, but you know the good thing about
it has a lot of guardrails. It has a lot of guardrails.
So if I join a team which does use Cypress, I pretty know exactly where to take a look for things, right?
Yeah.
This is engineering for me, right?
Wait, so what did we say? So assert map renders in mode and selector mode. And what does it return? What is it return?
Chainable. It actually doesn't need to return anything. Just do unknown.
Are you sure? Is an assertion a chainable? Okay, fair. I don't know. And the other one is assert map is at location. It's lat long, right? So it's latitude, longitude. And I need to add the map as well, right?
Are you a person who says that you are allowed to implement interfaces from the real code into Cypress? Or do you say those are actually two disconnected worlds? So not code. I'd only talk about stuff during build time, interfaces, types.
Yeah.
Not enums. Enums are runtime as well.
Oh, because I typed it again? Yeah, I wouldn't use the type.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the type. If anything, I would use the object, but I wouldn't use the type. I wouldn't destructure the object. I wouldn't use the enum here. Definitely not. I wouldn't want my test to fail because the enum is, I might change my mind. I'm not too strict on this.
But enum is runtime. This is my problem. Enum is a runtime.
Enum is runtime. Yeah, so I'm happy to change my mind on this.
Dear audience, what do you think? Is it okay to use a interfaces and types, so build time things, inside the test from the real app? And B, is it okay to use something like enums or objects inside your test as well? What do you think?
So what would you do here?
Actually, copy paste what you've already done and implement via template strings, right? This is what I would do.
So like this?
Yeah, I need to follow your cursor. I'm still not used to code, but I like it. And I actually pay for it with other licenses, so I should use it.
So this is the selector, and I think that's okay. And then this one is this, and I would say, oh, I didn't write it yet, so. Assert.
This is what I like with Copilot. If you have just made your interfaces, it would just suggest a complete
I don't
code
think
for you.
Copilot works as a guest in with Code with Me. That's one of the drawbacks. Your Copilot works because you're on the host machine. Mine doesn't. Selector.
Probably the same with the version of JetBrains.
I'm not sure. But I can see that Copilot AI Assistant is not available for guest host only. I see it in my IDE. Like it turned itself off.
Okay.
So it might be a security concern. Not sure. So I will use this.
Yeah, the AIs are actually, let's say, you're very transparent when using an AI. This is the downside. So the AI doesn't know everything about your project, which isn't actually the greatest thing in very strong SLAs and disclosure things.
So I'm only using the selector when I had an ID, because the ID I don't trust. The data labels I do trust. So I don't pass the selector in when it's not necessary. And it should be mode is this. I have a
There are commands for this as well. You can.
I have a plug. It doesn't work. I need higher security
Okay.
to be able to do this.
Full
Okay,
access.
and now I'm not sure, but I don't want to debug right now. So that's this.
You have full access now.
I have full access now. Interesting. Maybe it just didn't refresh for me. So how do I now use the command? I'm not that well versed with Cypress.
Dot and then the name assert.
No, okay.
That's
Yeah,
it.
okay, cool.
I really like that, to be honest. It is so straightforward.
You're welcome. At what mode? And now here I would use the enum, but otherwise I don't want it to be typed.
But that now you use the enum.
Yeah, now I use the enum. I'm using the value at runtime, but I don't want to use the type on the command file because I don't want to. I don't want Cypress to not compile if I'm refactoring something on the enums, because the entirety of the test suite will refuse to run if I mess up the typing system, right? So I wouldn't import.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it builds if Cypress is broken. I'm not sure. I need to test.
It's where I'm happy to change my mind on this. Okay, can we run the tests?
Yeah, sorry, we can. It is running, but it was already running, so it's updating every time we type something.
Okay, perfect. And now I would split out the tests, and I would even, because I don't want, one of my rules that I follow, one assertion per test. So one of these assertions has to go. So I would say mapbox. I don't care about rendering anymore. Mapbox map. Mapbox maps is positions. It positions mapbox at 0, by default in the option. Right. So now I would do this and this. Right. Because I wanna enforce the rule of the test should have only one reason to fail.
Okay.
So you can check out the tests. If these run,
Right.
they run, and now I'm gonna do the same thing with the bottom ones. They are the same. They are the same setup, right? So mapbox map. So I will do the same thing here. Oh, this is the one we already did. So I would say I need this here. It's the same selector. And we need this here. Notice how I named my function based on the comment we used to have, right? So these assertions had a comment, and I saw that, if it needs a comment, it should probably be extracted into a command. That was my initial inspiration here. Right? Because longitude and latitude, these together are not two assertions. I'm asserting that the location is correct, but I don't want to fail for one and not fail for the other. I want it to mutually fail, and then tell me, hey, it's failing on the location bit.
Good point. Yeah, good point.
And this is, because this is a really good example. Because I might, if I'm blind or stupid, I might not actually pick up that this is important information, and now I can just do 48.2 and 7.7, right? So life is easier. Now I'm not going to repeat the secondary positions here because this is Europa Park for the mock. I think this is related, but
the point was if this was the same point like you did with the ocean. That I picked the location where you clearly can see the name tag of Europa Park, which is unique. And so the reason was to call that stuff Europa Park. Right.
Okay, I'm not gonna deduplicate that because this is relevant, right? So these things belong together. Okay, yeah. And this is how I would refactor the tests, right? So we made the thing where we found a bug a little bit easier. So notice I didn't refactor anything that I religiously disagreed with. I only refactored in areas where I actually found a bug, and I made the bug next time harder to reproduce or at least easier to understand. Right, so I'm just following my pain, my discomfort. Do we?
Dude.
Yeah, do we need to cast it to a string?
Data get position is, and it was starting with, I think.
I made the. Okay.
It is here the problem, I think.
Yeah, was there a till?
Starts with it. It was
Yeah, you
a
see. Yeah, you see. I didn't actually pick up. Yeah, so it had the caret.
carrot, right? Carrot.
That actually sucks. We can make that the default in the command, right?
Where are you right now? I don't see your changes. Do you change something?
You can follow my cursor and find out, or you can run the test again. I made the caret the default. Yeah, we're good.
So acceptance test. Do I accept it? Yes, and this one. Oh no, again. Come on, this awful. I need to disconnect it. But really need to move it. But yes, it's actually working. Ah, damn it. Yeah.
Yeah, the query string.
But yeah, okay. Now we have this one here. So let's take this one. Again, maybe last acceptance test. It's working.
We have a comment, I think, from Thomas, and he mentions, I am always using interfaces types, data structure classes per test because it gives me hints and changes. It will automatically change also the tests. Yeah, again, I'm happy to change my mind on this. Gut feeling right now, I don't understand where the enum is coming from. If I have to type check the enum, right? So if I want to type check the enum, it will be information to the tester, what is allowed to be passed in. Now my issue is if we want to abstract that and maybe change the underlying implementation of the map, this test might actually change. And I wouldn't want to couple it to the implementation library. Like if we had defined, if we, the business had defined the type, no problem, I would add it to the test. But since it's being controlled by a third-party library that we're now testing in order to maybe abstract it and replace it with something else, I was a little bit more hesitant there. Again, I'm not fully against. I'm just that bit of intuition that says, I think we might actually change this, and it might actually cause the test to prevent me from changing behavior rather than help me in the future.
Okay.
With anything related to like global value objects, value objects in the domain-driven design sense of the usage of the word, like longitude, latitude, maybe some types, I would much rather have domain-agnostic types than domain-rich types in tests. Longitude, latitude, domain-agnostic, right? They mean something in the map, but they don't mean anything in the context of my application. So because they mean something in the world and they don't mean anything in my application, if my type is coming from a third-party library, I'm definitely hesitant in using it. I would much rather define my own and use it. I would perhaps define a type in the test and then see if there's maybe even have a type test inside the compilation step that says, hey, this type matches that type, or this type or that type, just to give me IDE autocomplete. But that's just developer experience for the person writing the test. And we're not optimizing for that in a high degree right now. Maybe in the next refactoring step. If I was typing 17 different enums for mode, then I would definitely consider this option. But not for simple strings, where I'm not even testing any other mode. I'm done. I'm happy with this. I'm happy where this went. This was a great exploration. Adrian, thank you so much for covering my back and really helping me understand and to sort of share your baby, your project for this kind of exploration and experiment.
So
great.
So I think we should stay with that project because we have shared some domain knowledge now here, so it is not that hard to do something in the future there as well. So I will definitely pick that not every week for for the Wednesday topic, of course, but here and there to just give you an idea of where the app actually is. So there will be work on that app because it's basically a free time project of mine. And you will see the progress. You'll probably be able to use that app on some point. It is very prototypey still. So, for example, if you take a look just onto the main screen. So if we quickly do a new session. Wait a second. If I remove that part, then I get back this new nice screen, which is looking good. But this is only a test for me. What I do quite often, and this is now a little bit from the design phase, it is like I want to see, like an MVP, and I am the feedbacking person, or some like you said, oh, it's looking nice. So how is it actually? And what I see here is a GIF done in Canva, right? And so the point is, if I would have done this like in CSS, which I will do. I've done that quite a lot in the past, so I've done a lot with animations. I love to use animations. The point is, it does take quite a while. So and I don't have I have just a limited amount of time to work on this app, which means that it seems to be more plausible to say, hey, I use Canva for this. I know the GIF which is coming out of it is actually too large for having it in a real production environment, but it's totally enough for my dev purposes to take a look how you react, for example, to that one.
It was delightful. It was delightful.
What is the audience saying about this one when you don't see it, right?
Yeah, we don't see it.
This is maybe one of the problems in presenting. You need to present actually.
Yeah.
Then suddenly it makes sense. So it is a little bit about this one. So you have basically an animated thing. And
but it's delightful. Like it makes such a huge difference in just the look and feel for on the splash screen. It is. That's just my opinion. The audience, please chime in. From my perspective, it's delightful. When you showed me this compared to like the static gray screen from the previous time that we demoed the application, it's night and day. It's so much more delightful. And just testing this sense of delight. If it's for branding purposes for a product, this is a sign of good product leadership. I can maybe go to refactoring and nitpick on that settings object, or I can experiment with putting this GIF into the splash screen. I will definitely, like 9 times out of 10, I will always tell a developer, yes, please experiment with the GIF on the splash screen rather than nitpicking on the settings object.
This splash screen can decide if a person is actually using the app and want to. So a little bit of gamification aspects here as well. So we are used to have nice games.
It's user
right.
experience.
You want to jump in and you want to take a look, and you see then the planet which is turning around and looking good, and you might have, for example, other map textures.
If the splash screen now is still mounted in the background and the GIF is animating on my phone and it's heating up my phone, then we have a problem. But as far as right, so
it is not rendering anymore. It is.
There is a potential of taking this too far in the wrong direction, right? If I open the app and it just goes, and it just becomes hot, then absolutely I'm like
exactly, and then they get invoices for mobile phones I need to pay, right? No, it's not about this. But as I said, this is for just the reason why I told you about my. The history of or let's say my thoughts. So I wanted to test out how design is working, and I said to myself, I don't want to spend more than 15 to 20 minutes, which is actually the time it takes to build something like that in Canva. And the longest part was actually to create GIFs. So Canva does take quite a long time to create GIFs somehow.
To render them, yeah, exactly. It also renders them at a very high resolution.
And I know that I can rebuild this in some way in CSS, where you just have 2 backgrounds, a logo, a little bit here. Let's take a look how we do that, and then start to animate this and make it responsive, because at the moment it is not responsive at all. But so if I do this, it looks shit, right?
But you are a master craftsman in Canva, but not in CSS. So you're a Tailwind user, right? So what do we know about CSS animations?
What is CSS exactly?
Exactly.
No, actually, I played.
That's the point with Tailwind, right? You can define. You can say, hey, I want a a black border here without having to understand, what is the exact order of things, and was it top right bottom left, was it left top right bottom, like what was the order of the right? So you can define
Yeah.
things without having to know the peculiarities, which is, in my opinion, just a failure of the whole CSS ecosystem to evolve with the web. And I prefer the way Tailwind approaches it, even if I disagree with the sort of right scrolling classes that are dominating the screen when I'm opening up a JSX file. But at least it's only in the JSX file, right? So
So,
if I have a design system like Nick Shumeko demonstrated last week, if that's all in one folder, I'm super happy. If
yeah. So
people
I.
if people are complaining about Tailwind classes going right side in the file where they write their hooks, that's a separation of concern problems. Like your design system should just have HTML and CSS, import a hook, a one-liner, here's the state, here's the hook, assign it, boom, done. If there's any more code in your components, it's just opening up a huge world of pain. Anyway, that's me. This was delightful. If you have anything to add, I'm happy to follow on it. If you don't have anything to add, I would like to add that we have 2 topics in the pipeline. So we are getting Jonathan Hall for TDD in Go. So we're doing something like this, but in a Go project, in an open source Go project that Jonathan is working on. And we already did this on one of the Mondays, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, with him on his channel, Boldly Go. It's a little Star Trek themed Go and Go enthusiasm channel. The second announcement is I'm aiming to get Sander Hugendorn on as a guest for, I think, the Thursday tracks, possibly Wednesday tracks. We still haven't discussed it with Adrian. Sander is one of the most down-to-earth, no bullshit agilists. So very much
Noble what?
he's a no bullshit. Like he doesn't do any like weird process, corporate process schlick about how to build software. He's just really down to earth, agile, and he's a dad. He's a great person. He has a lot of experience in the industry. He's kind of the European version of Brian Finster. I had him on the podcast once, 2 years ago almost now, before the babies were born. He was also one of my last guests before I stopped doing the podcasts. And we just chatted a bit on LinkedIn last week, and I think we can get him on for concepts like microservices, continuous delivery in small to medium businesses. He's a CTO, how he's running his systems, how he's running his culture, what kind of behavior, what kind of mechanics, and what kind of incentives he inspires and has set up in his organization. That's definitely coming. If you would like to see any topics, do give us a shout out. We have a Circle community where you can leave some comments. It's linked below. I have updated the domain name. Thank you for noticing yesterday. And yeah, thank you so much for being with us. Adrian, anything else from your end?
No, actually, it was interesting session today. I learned a lot. I think you learned something.
Yeah.
It is nice to actually expose your own work. This is what I really like. So, of course, we are all used to it, hopefully, internally, right? But how do you actually do that publicly? It's just quite interesting. How you think about your own code, your own doing, especially some stuff you have done in the past. You think more about why have you done this way? How would you do it today? And how is the pairing partner suggest, or even the audience suggesting it to do it? Why? So, for example, the user fact there. It was working, right? I was used to do it like this. We even saw it in the last session or several sessions before. No, it was somewhere else where this was one of the best practices to use. And we just saw, okay, there's another practice. It is possible that we find some rendering issues in the future and rebuild it with a use ref, possible, right?
It's easy to undo.
Exactly, but we tried to simplify first, and if we see, oh, it's not working, we're going back to the last step, which was working. And it is about changing and being open-minded and think about ways to improve, ways to simplify things, because what we've done today was we created a system which was easier to use than it was at the beginning of the session. And this is, for me, one of the very definitions of engineering. It is to make things usable over time.
We fixed the bug.
And we fixed the bug, right. So basically...
we discovered this, the bug itself and the surrounding area of the bug.
The next person who would work now on this code base would have it easier to work with it. Yeah. And that was very easy. This is a very, very important thing. We thought about critically. We thought about... Yeah?
I just want to highlight that even though this is now a 2-hour session, we did waffle a lot around the topic. The point is, test covering something in a legacy system. Stop it.
I need to turn it off from time to time when you talk.
So test covering it took like 20 minutes. Right, so two engineers that took the actual coding part. Once we understood what's going on, adding a bunch of new tests, refactoring them took about 20-25 minutes. Right, so anybody can do this. Like, no matter how messy your code base is, but you just need to have laser precision, focus, and say, where is my next feature going to be? Oh, it has something to do with this. Okay, is it test covered? No. Well, you said it is test covered, and sometimes the tests fail, which is even worse, right?
Flaky tests, yeah.
And flaky tests, because there's nothing worse than flaky tests. Because you're like, I can change this because it's test covered. Then if you hadn't run the test before you made the change, you might actually accidentally assume that you broke something. And if you didn't revert your changes to see that the test was actually flaky before you made the change, you might actually spend days debugging a problem that doesn't even exist, not because of your changes. Right, so I'm always allergic. I'm very sensitive to flaky tests. Flaky tests are the worst than no tests. And I'm glad we fixed them today. So I'm glad we were able to do so. I interrupted you in the middle of the sentence where you were discussing us showing an example and being vulnerable and being open-minded about change.
Mm-hmm.
About fixing the bug, test covering, etc., and remaining in flow.
Good. No. Yeah.
Sorry.
I think. Yeah, but anyway, it is like I don't know where I was before the interruption, to be honest. Thank you, everyone. So you have learned a lot. There was, we made it simpler. We added a little bit of value because we removed bugs. We created a better foundation. We showed, a little bit more. So everyone here in the audience who would follow that in the future as well does have now some domain knowledge about what we actually want to build. So it's actually a good thing. So if you follow that, for example, TypeScript, and this is maybe something I can't say in the end, is like TypeScript is a very good way to learn to work with type languages, because it's a very clear, very simple syntax, which is of course based on C#, and it's comparable to Java, and so it is at some point. So it is, but it's easy to read. The simplicity of JavaScript is still there, which is great. I like JavaScript, but I like TypeScript more. And the point is that if you want to get in those things, you saw still a good setup. So everything around it, the linters, the setups, how we're doing that, is actually good. So what we could implement is, for example, something like Git hooks, where we just say, hey, let's implement something like Husky, to not be like, I need to build it, and in order to pre-commit hooks could be something interesting to implement next time as well. Doing those things, so how to implement best practice, even if you have a private prototype project, how can you refactor it to a production grade level? And this is actually what we're going to do here, right? This shows that you can do that if you like, and you should do that in your production environment because, and this is maybe the last point I want to mention today. I explicitly mentioned this is a private project. You saw that in the Git history. I was only using only me pushing things, right? The point is that this code quality is often production quality. Actually, the most stuff I see is like that, right? And this is where we can improve. This is where we can understand that we always have reason to improve, but we should not, and this is what Dennis showed today very well, we should not become, not about the nitty-gritty things. It is not about the very detail. It is not about pushing my opinion onto a team or to another team one. This is very important for others, especially senior or biased senior developers joining a new team. There might be not so experienced persons, and then the senior developer starts to, instead of following best practices, following his personal best practices, and there are big differences, biased practices, let's say. And this is what we shouldn't do.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you are a junior, don't be a complete pushover. Like, still have an opinion and sort of test the boundary, test whether somebody disagrees, and then, gently let it breathe, let it explore. But don't be a complete pushover. Don't have zero opinions and then just ask the seniors to give them your way of working, and then fully adapt to them, because you might actually pick up bad habits without actually having a healthy boundary or having a healthy sort of distance to separate opinion from
the point is, I had this document like craftsmen versus engineers. I had this juniors versus seniors as well. And seniors and juniors, the relationship is not master and apprentice. It is not the same. The senior developer is just a more experienced person, but it's not the master. It is still a person. So this is the problem. In craftsmanship, especially the journeyman things, right? Apprenticeship model. It is about that as soon as you reach master level, you are supposed to have learned, right? You are done learning. You are now executing. This is the old model of the medieval apprenticeship model. And yes, we still have that today in some points where people think after 20 years they have done everything. They actually don't need to learn much, and they have their strict opinions. And this is the sweet spot I don't like. So you need to be distinct in that moment and say, yeah, I learned a lot, but I still can learn a lot. There's always room to improve. And if you ignore that, if you just say, no, it is not, it's basically resistance and keeping you from becoming better. And it is a little bit, especially complicated, because it can become a toxic environment as well. If you have several people with that experience in the same room, but different opinions, then it becomes a little bit problematic. And actually, I have that, or need to help companies sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that perhaps next week on one of the shows.
Maybe seniority and seniority would be an interesting topic, actually.
Yeah, what is it? The whale problem? Elephant? Hippo, right? The highest paid person's opinion, right? That's usually the problem with ivory tower architects or CTOs who are pushing opinion or who are speaking first.
It is a common problem, and it's hard to overcome. I was like that in the past. So there's
I was like that. I work with people like that. We butted heads.
I think I would even say this is a part of development of yourself, to get into this position where you test out how it would be, but you need to come to the point that you actually never be. And this is maybe some people overcome it and understand it in a natural way. Most people I know get to the point on some point. It is really like that. And especially when I talk to older generation persons, they tell me, yeah, I was there as well. It is always like that. So this is where people refer to the Dunning-Kruger effect, that it is a little bit like, that what you know is working, but it's probably not the best, which is now, what you need. So it is always about the process, the project, the outcome, the team, the culture. This is what you should think of. And your personal things you have learned is not necessarily the best thing you need now, even though it might work. But it is simply not like that. This is the term when you have too many cooks in the kitchen. It is, or chefs in the kitchen. Cooks or chefs is basically the same, right? Is it? Is it the cook the same as a chief, as chef?
No, it's
in
like
English.
chefs. Like you want many cooks, but you only want one head chef. Like only one chef.
Okay, in Germany that's actually the same word, I think.
Yeah, I know, which is why. Yeah. Anyway, in tech news, Devin is here, the AI, which is being masqueraded as a general intelligence for coding. It's an auto-prompting, auto-GPT-like developer.
React 19 and Tailwind 4.
Yes, Tailwind 4 is coming, is out.
They're removing use callbacks and use memo as a thing.
And we have JSR, which is the new JS registry movement, which is a flagship package manager that is NPM compatible, and it is TypeScript native. So we finally have a TypeScript native, another package manager in the JavaScript ecosystem. Thank God. It's been 2 years since we had the last one, so it was time for a new one. At least this one is TypeScript native. So JSR, Devin's out, React 14, Next 14, and Tailwind 4. Those are what I'm up to date with. Expect some newsletter posts about those topics. If you have any other opinions on that, or if you want us to talk about it more, I sprinkled some ideas. Leave us some feedback. Leave us some posts in the community. Send us some kind of DMs. Send a hello.
You can send me some unfriendly DMs as well, then I know the people I can block.
Yeah, fair. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Adrian, thank you so much for all the support and for coding live. This was fun. Gonna put us some elevator music now, and see you next time.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.